John Hendrix, historically known as the Prophet of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. He was considered a seer by those who lived near him in Anderson County, Tennessee. Hendrix is famous for predicting the Manhattan Project, specifically Oak Ridge and the plants built within, nearly half a century before they would be commissioned. John Hendrix was born in Anderson County, Tennessee on November 9th, 1865. Anderson County was in the middle of nowhere for most of John Hendrix's life. Even today, it is considered a rural area. We don't know much about his early childhood, probably because he was born right after the Civil War, when the country was going through many different changes. We do know, however, that Hendrix married a young lady out of Morgan County by the name of Julia Ann Griffith. John was in his early 20s when he was married, and the couple would go on to have 4 children. The family lived on a hill that is located above the Bull Run steam plant in Claxton, Tennessee, which of course was not yet built during this time. Unfortunately, the Hendrix family lost their 2-year-old daughter to diphtheria, which caused a massive rift between John and Julia. Julia blamed John for their daughter's death and ended up leaving him and taking the rest of the children to Arkansas, where she remarried. Understandably broken from the loss of his daughter, John Hendrix dipped his toes into religion. Then he began learning about mysticism and magic. John would then go on a pilgrimage in the woods for 40 days and 40 nights just so he could pray. He hoped that this trip would bring him some divine inspiration or a sense of purpose so he could move on with his life. Soon after this retreat into the woods, Hendrix began having visions. He would share his visions with so many in the community that he got the reputation of being crazy. Needless to say, his neighbors did not like what his visions had to say. Hendrix's reputation became so well known that the police eventually came to take him away. Because they thought he was insane, the police decided he was dangerous to society, so they put him what the locals called the poorhouse. The poorhouse was not a place where Hendrix remained free. He was imprisoned there. Hendrix wouldn't spend long in the poorhouse, however, as he quickly escaped, declaring that God himself would burn the poorhouse down within a month's time. Just as Hendrix claimed, the poorhouse caught fire from a lightning strike. Even though most people dismissed Hendrix's visions, some thought he was an evil warlock. John Hendrix's most famous vision would come next. According to legend, Hendrix predicted that Anderson County would drastically change. He claimed that a city would be built and it would help to win a great war. The legend says John Hendrix was quoted as saying, "I tell you, Bear Creek Valley someday will be filled with great buildings and factories, and they will help toward winning the greatest war that will ever be. And there will be a city on Black Oak Ridge, and the center of authority will be on a spot middle way between Sevier Tadlock's farm and Joe Pyatt's place. A railroad spur will branch off the main L&N line, run down toward Robertsville, and then branch off and turn toward Scarborough. Big engines will dig big ditches, and thousands of people will be running to and fro. They will be building things, and there will be great noise and confusion, and the earth will shake. I've seen it. It's coming." Years later, the city of Oak Ridge, the Y-12 plant, and other facilities would be built to help the Allies win World War II by developing the atomic bomb. It seems as if Hendrix's prediction was right. Even his words on the railway lines and center of authority were proven to be as accurate as he predicted. John Hendrix would go on to remarry and have another son. Unfortunately, he would get tuberculosis and pass away on June 2nd, 1915, a couple of decades before the Manhattan Project even started. But the story doesn't end there. In 1942, farm owners in Anderson County received letters from the federal government saying they were going to take over their land. They didn't tell them it was to help build the atomic bomb, but that was the truth of the matter. One of the farmers who received this letter was Paralee Raby, who owned 15 acres in Bear Creek Valley. As it turned out, the War Department never used her land for anything during the Manhattan Project. The odd part, however, was that the previous owner of that property was Raby's stepfather, John Hendrix, the prophet of Oak Ridge, who predicted that the Manhattan Project would come to Anderson County, had the land he used to own taken from his stepdaughter for the very project he predicted. Now, if that isn't some ending to the story.